Thank you. So Violet turned 1 yesterday. Here's a present for you. Do you want it? Yep. See what she did with it? That's a blue jay. She put it in her mouth. Now, Henda, how old did you just turn, Henda? 7, that's what I thought. So it must have been about 6 years ago I spoke on this subject. That was a long time ago. It just seems like it was just yesterday to me. But I used Henda as an example when she was, I don't know if she would have been about 6 months or maybe it was a year and a half. I think she was just a baby. So it must have been about 6 years ago. I used her as an example of how intelligent a human being is. So we're preaching right now, okay? We have to stay right here for a little bit because we're speaking, all right? Thanks. As a matter of fact, human beings aren't super intelligent, and we will learn to know a lot of things in life, but the things that we learn in life or that we will end up knowing in life by the time we die are mostly going to be things that somebody taught us. We don't learn a lot of things on our own. Most of what we learn, somebody taught us. So we're going to put this right here, and that's going to stay there for just a minute. And you can sit right here for a minute. Can you tell everybody in the room how intelligent you are? Well, let's just put it this way. When she was born, if we had handed her off to another couple and had abandoned her, for the rest of her life, she would say, Mommy and Daddy, to a person who wasn't her mom and dad. And she would have no way whatsoever to know any better unless one day somebody told her. She's not born with that information. The only way she can learn who Mommy and Daddy are is the fact that she gets to know them. And well, let's say that the most intelligent thing that she knows when she is born is that she wants to eat. And so, as a matter of fact, from the time she is born until she is over a year old, every single thing that she ever picks up goes in her mouth. So let's just take for an example. If somebody is going to feed her, she is going to drink milk, and she will guzzle it down, and she will be very happy to have had it. Do you need to go see Mama now? Are you done? Okay, you go see Mom, and we will continue talking about you. Okay? So if you give her milk, she'll guzzle it down. If you put milk with poison in a bottle, she would guzzle that down. If she crawls around the floor, which she is now just getting away from crawling, she's just starting to take her first few steps. If she crawls around on the floor, it does not matter what the object is that she picks up, it will go in her mouth. Now, she specifically seeks for small enough objects that can fit in the mouth. She does like to chew on big things too. She'll pick up a stick and chew on a stick and whatever. But really her goal is to find little things that she can put in her mouth. It does not make any difference if they are food or metal or glass or paper or any. It makes no difference what it is. They are all the same to her. She will put anything that small in her mouth and chew on it. We create computers that connect us to the entire world and that can process information and do absolutely incredible things. But if you give her a computer, it's to chew on. That's what a computer is good for at her age. I like the example of a truck. If I get in a truck with one of my little babies and put them on my lap, you know what they do? They chew on the steering wheel. Now, I want you guys to just stop and think for a moment what might be on the steering wheel. People say that money is the dirtiest thing in the world. Every single time that you check out at a store and use money, the next thing you do is go put your hands on the steering wheel. How many of you guys wash your steering wheel like once a year? Okay, wait a minute. I see like 2 hands in the whole room. Like, you guys wash your steering wheel once a year. Okay, so I know that it's really, and Nikki says that a person should not pick their nose in public. I don't know why she would ever say that to me, but she says a person shouldn't pick their nose in public. That means it's okay to do it in private, right? So let's say you're driving down the road and you pick your nose, and what do you do with your hand next? Put it on the steering wheel. Now, I could talk about worse things than that I know you guys do when you're driving by yourself, but I'm not even going to talk about those things. But there's things that you guys do when you're driving down the road. You touch things that are dirty, and then you put your hand on the steering wheel. Now, when Violet gets a steering wheel in her hands, it goes in her mouth. She's pretty smart, right? Pretty smart. Well, as a matter of fact, you guys can say, well, she's a baby. This is what babies do. But you know what? God looks down the course of human history, and he looks at the whole world, and he sees the whole human race with that much intelligence. They do not understand. They don't know God. They don't know the difference between right and wrong. They can't figure out the basic, simple things in life as it relates to God and morality and truth. They can't figure it out. And so he wrote us a book, and he spelled it all out, and he gave us the book, and we read this thing, and we study it, and then we walk away, and the world comes and teaches us some absolute nonsense that there is no way could possibly ever be true, like evolution, which the first 3 chapters of the book God gave us completely refute, and we accept it. Why are we so dumb? Well, you know, it's been this child thing, putting things in their mouth has been a lifelong struggle for every person who's ever raised a child. And I've got some grown boys here, not grown, but you know, they're not babies anymore. That there's one of them sitting in the front row here. He's already this tall, and he's really smart, and he can do a lot of things, and he's proud of himself about how he can shoot a bow, and you name it. But you know, when he was a baby, he swallowed a penny. And that becomes the nightmare of a parent's life, to try to keep things out of their baby's mouth. And you know, well, it's not, no big deal. So Caden swallowed a penny, so the next one comes along, and his name is Jet, and he says, well, if Caden can do it, I can do it. I'm sure he probably didn't know at that point in his life that Caden had swallowed the penny, so he swallows a marble. And you know, it would seem like me and Nikki must be absolutely awful parents, but it has been a lifelong chore to keep things out of our kids' mouths that do not go in the mouth. And as those children begin to grow, they begin to learn new things, but not so much because they were intelligent. It was more so because somebody taught them. So somebody taught them, do you realize that when a child becomes 1, 2, 3 years old, that you have to actually teach them not to put their food on their clothes every time they eat? They don't do that naturally. You have to teach them not to do that. Now, there's a difference in some children, and some children are a little cleaner than others, so maybe some are a little bit more petite and wouldn't smear their food all over their clothes. We had young men growing up in this church that wore their potatoes on their clothes when they were in their teens. And that's not a matter of that kid being dumb. That was just simply a matter of he didn't get taught. Somebody didn't tell him, don't put your mashed potatoes on your shirt. I don't know what happened. Honestly, I don't know. But let's just put it this way. We're not very smart. And so what I'm going to tell you this morning is very, 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 very simple. There is information for you to know about God. There's information for you to know the difference between right and wrong. It's been spelled out to us. It is crystal clear. If you will accept it, it is there for you. But what we are going to find is that the battle against error is dramatically hard, and the battle to teach truth is dramatically hard. It's not a matter of the fact that one day I could go up to Violet and say, Violet, only food goes in your mouth. And then she would be like, I'm smart now. I know this. Only food goes in my mouth. It's going to take me 2 years of working with her to keep things out of her mouth that do not go in her mouth. It's going to take me 2 years. And you know what's wrong with the human race? The number one issue here that prevents us from knowing truth? That we think we're smart. We think we know. And the fact that we think we know prevents us from learning the truth, because we went to college, and at college my professor said, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if 50% of everything that is ever said in college is actually false. I'm not saying that's true. I said I wouldn't be surprised if 50% of what is taught in colleges is false. It most certainly has been at certain times in certain countries in history. And there have been times, I'm sure, that most everything that has been taught in a college has been truth. But right now, today in the United States, I don't know. I think the difference between truth and error is pretty great. We start out with the premise that we were able, through our learning, to come to a knowledge of truth. We have been able, with a very, very, very short period of time, in looking at a batch of very old things that we don't know anything about and don't really understand, we have been able to piece together the universe's history for billions of years. Now, if you were to say that to a person who is thinking and smart, on the very face of that statement, it is impossible. We cannot solve murder cases that happened 30 years ago when we have all sorts of tools in our hands to solve with. We can't solve basic informational things of science and health and disease and cures that we have spent the world's history working on. There is no possibility that science has pieced together 12 billion years of the universe's history in a few years of studying. There is no way they could do that. The evidence trail, even if the universe was 12 billion years old, which it isn't, it's only 6,000 years old, the evidence trail that would have been left behind for 12 billion years of history would be so minuscule and so difficult to understand, and the pieces would be so far scattered that there could literally be a 4 billion year section that there was no evidence from in that 12 billion years of history, and that things could have happened at an astronomical scale that nobody has any idea or ability to put into thinking. There could have been, perhaps, this is just pretending now, that let's say 1 billion years after the universe went bing and exploded into the everything that it is right now, that life formed on every star. And for a long time, these fire creatures dominated the universe, and they could travel from star to star, and there were trillions of them, and they made music better than any music we've ever made, and they wrote books out of material that we don't understand and have never seen and couldn't see, that doesn't exist on Earth. And there's a library up on one of the stars of 1 trillion books that they wrote, and it's just waiting to be discovered. And this period could have gone on for 4 billion years, and we would know nothing at all about it. All of its history would be gone and erased, and we would have no idea that it had ever existed. And we've got these stupid, I'm serious when I say stupid, we've got these stupid scientists who actually believe that they understand the beginnings of the universe, what happened in the course of the universe, and until we get to earth and the time of life coming to earth, and they know approximately how many millions of years ago life came to the earth. From whence it came, they're not sure yet, but they know approximately how many millions of years ago life came to the earth, and what it first looked like, and what it made, and how the animals grew out of that, and which animals came first, and which ones came second, and when man came, etc., etc., etc. And they've got a whole history written out of pure nonsense that they have absolutely no information whatsoever to prove anything of. And you know what? Most of the world right now believes it. Most of the world believes it. That is, if I'm going to say the truth, that is dumber than a 1-year-old putting everything they find in their mouth. It's dumber. And it's being taught by the most knowledgeable people on earth. And the Bible says that the world by wisdom knew not God. That's what the Bible says. The world has been pursuing wisdom, and in all their depth of understanding and the things that they have understood, they have not figured out through their wisdom that God exists or that He made the earth. So, if we turn to Isaiah chapter 1, I'll look at Isaiah for a little bit this morning. Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 1 says, "The visions of Isaiah the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward." So this was God's message to the nation of Israel through Isaiah the prophet. And you remember the story of Isaiah, not Isaiah, but rather Israel. You remember the story about how God brought them out of Egypt with miracles and signs and wonders, and He brought them up against a gigantic lake, and the army of Israel, the army of Pharaoh rather, was behind them, and they couldn't go forward and they couldn't go backward, and they didn't know what to do. And Moses stretches out his hand with his rod over the sea, and God parts the waters, and they walk through on dry land. And that was just the beginning of intense miracles in the wilderness. And they finally get to Israel. And you know, Israel has this long history with God, showing them the absolute, undeniable proof that He is there. And they forsake Him. And He says, I've nourished and I've brought up children, but they rebelled against me. Why would a child rebel against God when they knew Him and they saw Him and everything was there in front of their eyes for them to know that God was real? And they just forsake Him. Caden, do you think it would be possible for you to do a search for me and see where my glasses went? Because I think Violet must have had them, unless she dropped them on the floor up here. Oh, she dropped them under here. Okay, good. Thank you. I am not seeing very good without them. So Isaiah... Let's just go to Isaiah chapter 6 and just read the first 5 verses of Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and His train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face. With twain he covered his feet. With twain he did fly. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. All right, so you say, how do we know about God? Well, Isaiah is a messenger sent by God to try to bring Israel back to God. And so Isaiah first comes to Israel and he says, God says to you guys, I've brought up children and they have rebelled against me. Why did you guys rebel against God? But you see, God didn't, throughout most of history of the writing of the Bible, God did not come to people as in secret or in the darkness where nobody could know anything or see anything. He very much revealed himself. And so Isaiah sees in this 6th chapter something that rarely has man ever had any ability to see anything close to it. He sees up into heaven and he sees God, and God is sitting on a throne, and there, as God sits on the throne, there's seraphims that have 6 wings, and they're flying around the throne, and they're crying one to another. And Isaiah hears this as he is looking up into heaven. He hears them say, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And so Isaiah is not just making up some strange story from some weird feeling that he had in his heart about God trying to speak to Israel. He saw these things. He saw this happen. He saw God. And God is not careful in the message that he gives to Isaiah, because as Isaiah goes in throughout the book, he begins to prophesy, and this is the most dangerous thing any fool could ever do if he wanted to be proved wrong. But Isaiah begins to prophesy of things that are not to come for 100 years, 400 years. And he talks about things in Earth's history. He talks about the rebuilding of Babylon, or the rebuilding of Jerusalem, and the rebuilding of the temple, and about Cyrus, a king of Persia that had not been born yet. His parents hadn't even probably been born yet. He talks about all these things just as though he could see clearly into the future, and he says all these things are going to happen. And then he talks about Jesus coming, and he talks about this Messiah coming, which is now 400 years out until this is going to happen. He talks about, actually no, it's more than 400, I'm sorry. It was 400 years from the time Malachi prophesied, which was the last prophet. So Isaiah's earlier than that, and I don't even remember the years now, but he talks out hundreds of years until Jesus the Messiah is going to come. And he tells us things that are going to happen. Now, nobody in Isaiah's day could have looked at Isaiah and said, we can see clearly that you could see things that we couldn't see, because obviously all this stuff happened. You couldn't say that then because it had happened, but we can. We can look back over the history of the next few hundred years after Isaiah lived, and every single thing that Isaiah talked about, one after another, except for the things that are still coming, which would be when Jesus returns the second time. All the things that Isaiah talked about, they've all been done just exactly like he said they were going to happen, just exactly like it. The most crazy example is this king named Cyrus. He names him. God says, I know who you are. The guy hasn't been born. He doesn't exist anywhere on earth. God says, I know you, and I'm calling you by your name. And so Isaiah writes in the book, he writes Cyrus. And God says, this is what Cyrus is going to do. He is going to rebuild Jerusalem, and he is going to rebuild the temple. And he says, you know what? He's going to be a big king, and he's not going to do it for any reward. And Cyrus comes along. Many years after Isaiah prophesies this, Cyrus comes along. He's been born now for some years. Who knows how old he was when he takes the throne. But he takes the throne, and in the very first year that he's on the throne, he says, the God of heaven has given me all the nations of the earth, and he told me I had to build him a house in Jerusalem. Now, who is there of all his people who wants to go up there? Let him go. That's what happened. Now, Isaiah said that was going to happen, and he even named this king by name. many, many years before he ever came. So we're not talking about a book that is written out of somebody's imagination. We are talking about a book that God shared with Isaiah. And Isaiah wrote down the very words of God. He looked up into heaven and he saw God sitting on the throne. And he saw the seraphims flying around the throne. And he saw them crying, "Holy, holy, holy. The whole earth is full of his glory." Why didn't the rest of the people around him understand that the whole earth was full of his glory? This is what the people around him were doing instead. Isaiah chapter 44 and verse 6. And we'll read a passage here, verse 6 to verse 20. "Thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first, and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. And who as I shall call, and shall declare it, and set it in order for me, since I appointed the ancient people, and the things that are coming, and shall come, let them show unto them. Fear ye not, neither be afraid. Have not I told thee from that time, and have declared it? Ye are even my witnesses. Is there a God beside me? Yea, there is no God. I know not any. They that make a graven image are all of them vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit. And they are their own witnesses. They see not, nor know, that they may be ashamed. Who hath formed a god, or molten a graven image that is profitable for nothing? Behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed, and the workmen, they are men. Let them be gathered together. Let them stand up. Yea, they shall fear. They shall be ashamed together. The smith with the tongs both worketh in the coals, and fashioneth it with hammers, and worketh it with the strength of his arms. Yea, he is hungry, and his strength faileth. He drinketh no water, and is faint. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He fitteth it with planes, and marketh it out with a compass, and maketh it after the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. He heweth him down cedars, and taketh the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest, and planteth an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself. Yea, he kindleth it, and baketh bread. Yea, he maketh a god, and worshippeth it. He maketh it a graven image, and falleth down thereto. He burneth part thereof in the fire. With part he eateth flesh. He roasteth flesh, and is satisfied. Yea, he warmeth himself, and saith, Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire. And the residue thereof he maketh a god, even his graven image. He falleth down unto it, and worshippeth it, and prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God. They have not known nor understood, for he hath shut their eyes. They cannot see, and their hearts they cannot understand. And none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burned part in the fire, yea, also I have baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it. And shall I make the residue thereof an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? He feedeth on ashes. A deceived heart hath turned him aside, that he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, Is there not a lie in my right hand? Did you know that for the bulk of Earth's history, most of the people on Earth have been religious in the belief that there is a God? Most of Earth's history, most of the earth have believed that there is a God. But for much or most of the world's history, the God that these people believed in was something that they had made themselves out of wood, stone, gold, silver, etc., etc. And so he goes into this story about this people. We are going to say this is a very intelligent people. They're a civilized people. They read, they write, they have books, they have the Bible. God gave them the Bible. They build houses. The temple that Solomon built was probably one of the most amazing, magnificent structures that Earth had ever seen. The gold alone that was on it was probably worth more than anybody than the richest man in the world has ever possessed in wealth. This was not a dumb people. They were a very intelligent people. And these people were cutting down trees, chopping it into sections. With part of the section, they were building fires and staying warm and cooking their food. And they would take another section of the tree and they would carve it. And then they would fall down to it and worship it and say, "You're my God." Now, you guys sit there and you shake your head. If you have any sense in your head, you shake your head and you'd be like, why would a person do that? Isn't that kind of unintelligent to carve something out of wood and say, "You're my God"? This thing that you just carved, he can't move, he can't see, he can't hear, he can't do anything at all. And you're praying for it, you're praying to it, and you're asking him to do things for you that you can't do for yourself? How intelligent is that? I'm going to tell you right now, not one speck less intelligent than the entire scientific community today that believes in evolution. Not one speck less intelligent. The entire evolutionary story that is taught in every public school today, that everybody says is the truth. We have proof of these things in the fossil record and in the rocks and in the whatever and all the things that they say we have proof of these things. It is absolutely as dumb as a person cutting out a piece of a tree, carving it into the shape of a whatever you want to carve it into, man, animal, unseen character, and falling down to it and saying, "You're my God. Now give me the things that I need, please, God. Help me with the things that I can't do." It is absolutely insane. And so God says in Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 22, he says, "Look unto me, and be ye saved, all the ends of the earth, for I am God, and there is none else." I am God, and there is none else. That's God's message to the world. And the world, by wisdom, hasn't figured it out, but God has shared it with us. And he has sent the church, which unfortunately they have not done their job, to preach this to every person that exists on the face of the earth, because it is the only hope for man, is that he will get introduced to the one who truly is God. Now we read in Psalm 135 these words, verse 15 of Psalm 135, "The idols of the heathen are silver and gold, the work of men's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Neither is there any breath in their mouths. They that make them are like unto them, so is every one that trusteth in them." If there is anything that we have the ability to make, then it can't be God. We can't create something that can be responsible for caring for us and meeting our needs and protecting us and all the major things in life that we need so badly. We can't create something out of things that can't move and pretend that it can do what it can't do. And so when we make these images, we give them eyes. Why do we give them eyes? Those eyes can't see. And we give them ears, but those ears can't hear. And we give them hands, and we give them feet, and we give them all the things that somebody might need if they were going to be our God. But they can't use them, and so they sit just exactly where we put them. You know what the Bible says about the creation of the world? It says that God made the things which are seen out of things which do not appear. God made the things which exist in the universe out of things that did not exist. He called things that did not exist as though they were, and told them to come and be, and at his voice they became. That's what we call creation. He made something. Now we can make creation in a lesser sense, where we can take something that is and turn it into another thing. We can go out into the field and gather wheat and grind it, and we can go into the hen house and get an egg, and we can go gather all these ingredients and we can put them together and we can make a very nice cake. But everything that we got already was. And all we did was mix it together and put it in an oven and bake it for a little while. When God made the world, He made things, He made all the things that exist in the world out of things that were not. He did not take things that were to create. He created something for the first time. He made it to be. So, God made from nothing everything that there is. Now, the evolutionists come close to that in their doctrine, because they say, well, this gigantic, huge, entire universe one time came perhaps from something the size of a period on a page. It one time had been that small. And one time it exploded. And as it exploded, it expanded. And it continued expanding for I don't know how long, until it was this gigantic universe. How many light years? Millions, trillions of light years across. And now we've got Earth that's 25,000 miles around, and we've got the sun that's even bigger, and we've got stars that are yet even bigger, and all this came from something that was as small as a period on a page. Now, you tell me, somebody tell me, where in the fossil record, and where in the rocks record, and where in all of the record of the happenings of history did they find that record? Now we can go back and we can dig dinosaurs out of the dirt, and there's a real record there. We can say, look at this. There was this animal that used to look like this. We don't see around anymore. We can do that. But we cannot go back 12 billion years and find the spot that dot existed and figure out how it exploded and what happened when it began. That is absolute pure nonsense, that there is no record of whatsoever, and yet they teach it as truth. I'm telling you, I am absolutely 100% certain that my little 1-year-old girl, she's 1 year and 1 day now, I guarantee you she is more intelligent than that. The major scientists of this day that are in universities and being paid a salary to mar the brains of the young people that go there, that are teaching this garbage, they are dumber than my 1-year-old, because they rejected God. They thought they were smart. They had an education. They thought they had learned some things. They studied some things. But you know what? I could walk up to any one of those people and say, what do you think about those people back in what we might call the Dark Ages or Stone Age people who used to cut down trees and carve idols out of wood? And they would laugh with me and they would say, well, that was in the unenlightened age when people didn't know any better. You know what? I would sooner believe that I could carve a god out of a tree and fall down and worship it than I could make up a story about what happened when the universe was created that there is no record of whatsoever, and call it truth and pretend as though I had gotten the information from a real source. At least in front of me, when I'm worshiping a wooden god, at least I have a piece of wood. They don't even have that. They have something that happened 12 billion years ago that there is no record of, nobody saw it, and there is absolutely no way to know what happened unless somebody had recorded it, which actually was recorded in the beginning of the book of Genesis. It was recorded by God, who did it and saw it and knew everything. So we do actually have a record of what happened, but they have no way to have a record, and they still think they know it. Now, isn't that foolishness in the worst degree? You can't get dumber than that. Someday I should probably be a college teacher. But when I do, I'm going to have a college for college teachers, because they need to come and get educated. Because my 1-year-old could teach them better than the things they're teaching in their schools. Now I'm just asking a simple question today. How much does Violet know? That's my question. How much does Violet know? Everything that Violet is going to learn in life, most likely, most all of it, she is going to learn from somebody. Somebody is going to teach her. And if somebody comes and teaches her false things, she will probably believe them. And if someone comes and teaches her true things, she hopefully will believe them. But most of the things we ever learn, we learn from somebody teaching us. And the world goes on and on and on, believing the most ridiculous and stupid things. And for thousands of years, they bowed down to pieces of wood that they carved with their own hands, and so on. And now today, we think we are in the enlightened age, and we are just as dumb as the human history of all of Earth's ages. And there is a way to be smart. There's a way. If we could simply listen to what God is trying to teach us, we would have the information perfectly correct right in our hands. If we could just simply listen to what God is teaching us. You know, God set boundaries on earth, and this is why the biggest reason, not the only reason, but this is the biggest reason why we reject God as a people. Because if we accept the fact that God is real and that He made the world and that He knows everything, we're going to have to accept the fact that the things that He said not to do are so. We're going to have to accept the fact that when He calls something sin, it's sin. We're going to have to accept the fact that when He says He will bring all sin under judgment, that is so. And so if we're going to accept that fact, we realize there's boundaries on earth. Well, that's actually true. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 1, he says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace," etc. Here, God made things so that there is seasons in life. And some of these things we understand as humanity. Most of the things as they relate to physical things, we have a little bit better understanding of. But when they relate to things that are more spiritual, we completely lose it. But let's just say, for example, let's just take one of these. There's a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Charles, what time do we plant potatoes here in northern Wisconsin? When do we plant potatoes? In May. What time do you pluck them up? Okay, so we plant in May, we pluck up in September, October. Now, let's just say that's silly. Why are they doing that? Why don't you go plant potatoes this afternoon? It ain't going to work out for you if you try it. You can't change that because there is a time to plant. And that May, there's a reason we plant potatoes in May. We need to plant in May because if we had planted in April, they wouldn't have made it. And if you plant in June or July, you're not going to get them as big. They're not going to be able to grow as long, so we want to take advantage of the full season. So there's a very specified time to plant potatoes. Now, every item is different depending on where you live and what weather patterns there are and so on. But we're just talking potatoes right now. There's a very specific time you need to plant your potatoes. And if you do it at the wrong time, it's not going to work, or it's not going to work well. And there's a very specific time that you need to pick them. And then God talks throughout the Scripture about things that are moral. He talks about a man and a woman and marriage and faithfulness and purity and so on. And the whole world just goes and tramples over everything that he says and does whatever they want. But you know what? The problem is what they are doing doesn't work for them any better than if Charles were to go out and plant potatoes today in December. It doesn't work. If you're going to have it work, you need to do it on God's foundations. And so there's parameters that God gave us. There's a time to love. Yes. There's a time to embrace. Those two things are in this passage as well. But there's also a time not to. Now, the world wants to get rid of God because we can get rid of God's parameters, but we really can't. We can't get rid of God's parameters because there's a reason that God set the boundaries he set, because they work. And when God made us, he made us to serve a specific purpose. He made us to be fulfilled. He made us to be happy. He made things on earth to work, and so on. And if we go and do things apart from the way God made life to work, it doesn't work. And so, as he goes through the book of Ecclesiastes, which we won't read the whole thing here, he goes through the book, and he teaches us all about things on this life, on this earth, in this life, and how absolute empty they are, and how it seems so much like there isn't any value in them. And he goes through the book in his discussion, looking at life one facet at a time. And he finally gets to the last chapter, and he's going to teach us what he learned in life after looking at everything that a person could look at and trying to figure it all out. He says in the first verse of chapter 12, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth." And drop down to verse 13, he says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." You want to figure out who's smart in life? I'll tell you who is smart in life. The one who trusts the words of God, who is eternal, has always been, made everything that there is. He has no shortage of wisdom. When he says something, we can know for 100% certain, because he gave us that certainty in the things that he proved to us. We can know for 100% certain that he was spot on. And if you want to be wise, you can take that record that he has given to us, and you can be wise because somebody taught it to you that knew. Somebody being God. If you want to be dumb, you can go on and figure out things for yourself. You can deny or not live by the things that are obvious in life. You can do things your own way, but at the end of the day, it doesn't work. And so God cries this lamentable cry in the first chapter of Isaiah. "I have brought up children, and they have rebelled." I have brought up children, and they have rebelled. And that we look out over the human race, and that's what we see. God brought up his children, but they forsook him, and they went their own way. They went their own way and did their own thing, and it's not working out. So I think that it would be really honest, safe to say today that the bulk of the human race lives like this. Just like little Violet, everything she sees goes in her mouth. It doesn't matter if it's safe. It doesn't matter if it's harmful. It doesn't matter. I guarantee that if I were to put a live, red hot coal on the floor in front of her, she would try to pick it up and put it in her mouth. She doesn't know any better. And the whole human race is going on in their blindness with God behind them. They're not looking up to God. They're not listening to Him. And they're going on seeking pleasures for themselves. And they're in disappointment, constant disappointment, because they left God out and they're looking for things their own way and it doesn't work. The whole human race is no different than the picture that I gave you this morning of Violet. They don't know. They don't know. Somebody needs to go into all the world, like Jesus said, and preach the gospel to every creature, because that is man's only hope. Let's take a break.